Welcome to episode 2 of the College Tennis Series podcast at Abona Tennis, where we try to interview current and former college tennis players about what their junior tennis journey was like, when they started playing practice matches, how many days a week were they training, how did they get to the school that they got to. We want to get to the core of what it takes to make it to college tennis. And today we're going to hear a great story from Hunter Robbins, former Florida Atlantic University Division I tennis player, sharing his journey on how he started tennis very young, kept playing baseball until late, burnt out, got it back, still ended up quitting at the end of high school when he was so far down the recruiting list he couldn't even get into the schools that he actually wanted to in terms of wanting to play tennis. And then something triggered him while at Florida Atlantic University in his first semester to want to walk on the tennis team. Still had to wait a bit, but hope you enjoyed today's episode as you learn what it took for him to get to where he was, what he went through, his tough struggles, but then ultimately how he ended up having an incredibly successful year at Florida Atlantic University. Hunter, good morning. Thanks for joining us on one of the very few actually chilly mornings in South Florida. I'm down here as well. I'm not too far from you. I'm in Miami right now. So,
Okay.
but yeah, thanks for joining us to share your journey on how you got to be at FAU and just help us understand like what it took to get there. So thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me and also enjoying this cooler weather. It's not too often we get this.
Yeah, it's not too often. Enjoy it because it's going to warm up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, got to the FAU team, and we're going to kind of work backwards a little bit because I think it's really cool to see somebody that, we were talking a little bit off air about you getting to the fact of you were number 287 on the recruiting list.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that, but I looked that up and I'm like, 287. Looked at your tennis recruiting record, didn't even play against a blue chip. No, winless against 5-star recruits, winless against 4-star recruits, losing record against 3-star recruits, and it isn't until you play the 2-star recruits did you finally have a winning record there. So, and I know you're laughing there now, but I think this is what I want to know. Like, how did it happen? How'd you get there? How'd you get started?
Dang, you're just pulling up all the records and just coming after me early.
Yeah,
No,
get to it.
I I actually think I was probably like, I don't know, going into my sophomore junior year, I was probably around like 5 or 600 too on tennis recruiting. Yeah.
So,
I don't
so,
know.
ha- so what happened then? I mean, obviously you made big jumps late, but
I
you know,
played I played I played baseball also probably until I was like 15, 16. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think I also grew a lot. I was a little sick when I was in high school, had to get over some things. I grew a lot and I was probably like 5'6" going into my freshman year of high school. And then by the time I was a sophomore, junior, I was 6'1". So I
wow.
grew a lot and I was really skinny. So I was always getting hurt. That was like the biggest thing for me. Um, the way I played, I had like a big game and I was super athletic, but I just didn't have like the muscle on me to like play that game. So I don't know. I was not the best like junior, like traveling. I would get very nervous, and that was like a huge hurdle that I had to overcome when I was, you know, growing up and preparing for college. And yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was taking all those lessons of losing and learning how to win and understand myself as a junior that eventually prepared me for college.
So when you made that big growth spurt there, I mean, did you ever find this is something new? I learned as well. So I wonder if you went through it where when players grow a lot in that sport, I don't know baseball, but at least in tennis, it's like they have to relearn their body, relearn their strokes, relearn their length when they're following through, their spacing. The game changes because the way they felt the court, which is a really important aspect for a player, their feel of where they are, how to get to balls, it changes. And then they have a lot of trouble refining that. I mean, is that anything you went through? Or is it more just specifically just the injuries?
Oh yeah, you can ask anyone that knows me. When I was 15, 16, I was probably the clumsiest kid that you knew. Like I would walk down the stairs and trip over my own feet because just wasn't used to my own body. But yeah, I totally agree. It took me a while to kind of get used to it. I like 6 months not even that tall, but it felt like I was 7 feet tall just because I grew so fast. I don't know. I just didn't know how to like control myself. Um, but yeah, it really wasn't until I started lifting a lot, like probably my towards the end of my senior year of high school, going into college was when I probably started like lifting weights and putting on muscle is what really was the game changer for me.
So senior year of high school is when you started actually doing like pretty serious strength and conditioning.
Yeah, I was always in really good shape, like cardio wise. Like I did a lot of military workouts, like always doing the Murph, going on long runs. I was very fast. But yeah, I never really lifted like weights until I was probably 19 years old, 18, 19.
Wow. Wow. So was there a point in time before with baseball or anything that, you started doing fitness even as a kid or anything, or it wasn't, 18, 19 is when you really took it seriously?
Yeah, it was just a lot more like hand-eye, a lot of footwork, a lot of mobility, balance. I don't know. I also feel like the narrative, like back in the day, like a lot of tennis players are told not to lift weights, like it's not good for your body. And I couldn't disagree more with that. Like
I
I
went,
think,
yeah, we're around. I mean, I'm a little older, but that's still pretty fresh on my mind as well. There's a lot of people that are afraid to, make kids stronger when they're young, and
yeah,
and I think you can do a lot of stuff when you get started with just resistance bands, medicine ball work to build the base to then do the throw some weights on without getting hurt.
yeah,
So I guess you ran into the same thing.
yeah.
Okay. So, well, look, let's, I jumped pretty far ahead early, but let's bring it back because obviously, when did you start playing tennis?
As far back as I can remember, my dad had me with a little foam racket and little foam balls before I could even stand. And then I'm sure as soon as I started walking, he had me on a tennis court. So
And
very
where'd you grow up
young
playing
age.
tennis?
I grew up in Delray Beach. Yeah,
Okay.
been here my whole life.
Playing in academies or just clinics, lessons? What was that experience like?
I My dad coached me probably until I was like 9. He played at Bradley, so he had a tennis background. And then I played with this guy Fernando Semioa probably in like West Boca, and he was always around my entire tennis career. He helped me a lot on and off probably until I was like 15, and then I would go back to him every now and then for like tune-ups. I never really went to that big academy. I was always just in like very smaller groups and with a couple of people here and there.
What was that group experience like? Was it something to where, you know, 2 to 4 kids on a court, or do you have more 6 kids, 8 kids on a court sometime? What was that like?
Yeah, the most we yeah, we never really had more than 3, 4 kids on a court. Um, when I was with Fernando, it was probably like 2 to 3 of us at a time, max. And then when I was 15, I started playing with Todd Whittam a little bit. And then for like a few years, it was me, Todd, Pierre, and his coaching staff. And over there, it was 1 to 2 kids, 3 kids max on a court with a coach. And I never really, I just feel like if you have that, you get like a bond with the coach, and they're able to start knowing your game rather than them worrying about 30 other kids. And then the parents start getting involved, and then there's politics and this and that. So I definitely agree with, you don't need to have a private coach, but having like smaller group systems where you can compete against each other. There's a good competitive environment. I think everyone kind of benefits and gets better that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. But what this was stuff was after school. I mean, did you ever homeschool or anything?
No, I went to school. I never homeschooled.
All the way through high school?
Yeah, all the way through high school.
That's awesome. All right. So when you were doing these after school groups, I mean, were you getting practice matches at any point in time, or did that come later?
Probably didn't start playing practice matches until I was like, I don't even know, probably like 12,
Okay.
probably 12, 13, like, when you start playing tournaments and all that. Uh, yeah, I mean, we would. Probably get home from school at like 3:30, 4, and then play from like 4:30 to 6:30. So
So
not
just
not the best, not the best hours, but
and you were
had
playing 5 days a week at this point.
yeah, 4 or 5 days a week probably. Yeah.
Okay. How can you remember? I mean, could you go so far back to say that you don't even remember when you started? I'm similar to that. I don't even remember my first day of tennis. But do you remember when you started to go? Just pretty much 4 or 5 days a week to tennis.
My dad probably had me out there a lot when I was a kid. Like I remember coming home from school, but I remember when I wanted to play Division 1 and take it seriously. It's probably 15. 15, 16 was when I was like, okay, I need to like actually focus and get rid of some distractions and take it all the way.
It's interesting because so many people think that tennis is a sport that if you just start specializing when you're young, playing 4 or 5 days a week, you're kind of, I wouldn't say guaranteed success, but like that's the for sure route to go. But even you ran into a part where, okay, just because you're out there doesn't mean you're maximizing your day. You're legitimately getting better, and then by 10, 12, you're just better than everybody, right? Like, I mean, how old were you when you first started your first tournament?
Probably 9.
Probably nine. So, like in the 12s, I mean, what was your ranking in the 12s? Do you remember?
When I was 10s and 12s, I was always top 20 in the state. So
Okay.
I was a pretty good junior when I was 10 and 12, and then I was just, the typical like, kid. Like I wanted to go have fun with my friends, or I wanted to play video games, and then there starts to be distractions. Then you go through things when you're 13, 14. There's like pullback and stuff. So probably between the age of like 13 and 15 was when I guess got lazy, and then it was when I was like 15. I was like, all right, like let's get this back going. Like let's get this together.
Did Is there any part of that might have been because you started so young that maybe there was a part of it that just like, I just want to try something else for a little bit. Like I've been playing tennis so much, can I just go hang out with my friends for a little bit?
Yeah. No, yeah. I definitely burnt out a little bit. And you see it all the time. A lot of, kids do. I was for sure one of them. I burnt out. I didn't stop, but I went from, grinding every single day, 5 hours a day in the summer, and it's hot, and just all these different things. I wanted to socialize more and grind, like, work hard less. And I was uh, yeah, definitely burnt out a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're experiencing success. So it's not like it's the losing and all that time that just made you lose some motivation, right? I mean, you're experiencing success. You're into the level ones, I imagine. You're playing that ranking. You're in clays, hard courts, and all that stuff at the 12 and under. I mean, you're one of the best kids in the country, but that still, I mean, there's a part of you that even though you were one of the best, kind of had your mind looking at other places when you were young, right? But you were also going to school too, and I bring all this stuff up because a lot of people think that, oh, as long as they don't homeschool, then they have a healthy, social balance, right? And they're having friends, and they're having that time with their friends just by going to school. So, on paper, if I were in today's modern way of thinking of junior tennis, if I were to see, started playing tennis very young, experienced a lot of success, but never homeschooled, that might be the perfect recipe to continue on great success. But then you ran into a roadblock at some point. I mean, did you start losing at any point, or no? I mean, your results are kind of the same, but then you're like just getting tired, or do you feel any pressure because you were trying to make another jump? Did you feel like maybe I should homeschool? Other kids are homeschooling. I'm not. I know there's a lot thrown into that, but
Yeah, funny enough, I don't think I ever played in my entire junior career a level 1 or a 2. I think
really,
the
why?
just didn't travel really out of the state of Florida. I didn't I know I didn't play, they didn't really have that in 10s. And then 12s, I don't know. I don't remember ever going to any of those. I know I played like all the Bobby Curtises and a couple like low level nationals, but yeah, I never. And then after 12s, I just didn't have the ranking, so I never played.
So
Um,
your rankings started to drop off just because you stopped playing.
yeah, and my results just weren't as good. I definitely was very like whenever I would travel, whenever I would play like the Super Series and everything down here, it was or if there was a tournament here, it would be fine. But I had this mental block whenever I had to like sleep in a hotel, like go away. I would get super nervous and I just couldn't even play. And it working through that was very important for college, and it changed me. And it back to what you said, going through because I did lose a lot in juniors, and going through all that, I had a very strong work ethic. I was a very good competitor, um, and that's what I think was the difference for me in college rather than juniors.
So how did you work through that? I mean, at some point you had to start playing again and traveling a little bit, and especially even to get into college. I mean, how did you work through that?
I very after like reflecting on everything, I think the mental game in any sport is more important than the actual level. I mean, like in college, everyone's good in college. It's just who's got the confidence, who's going to play the bigger points better, who's in better shape. It's who does the little things better in the big moments. That's like the difference between someone really good in college and then just like an average college player. But I think just how I got over it, I got like a mental strength coach, I guess you could say, for about 6 months, and it wasn't someone that taught it like psychology or anything like that. It was more so like, how can I help you become more confident in like yourself and your abilities, so that it doesn't matter what's on the line, like what you're playing for, who you're playing against, and you can kind of take this in all aspects of life. And even working with him, once I stopped working with him, I was like, all right, this doesn't work. This is stupid. But then like 2 years later, I found myself still using the same techniques, and I was like, wow, like I'm a different person. It kind of hit me later. And I was also like a late bloomer and, just growing up mentally and physically as well.
So, I mean, it sounds like it wasn't so much that the process was like the issue with what that mental coach. It was a little bit more of like when you finally found the way to buy in completely into the process,
Yeah.
and then you really leaned into it even more. Like before, is it fair to say that you're doing it because you were just trying to find a solution, but you didn't really believe in it or you didn't know about it? It's like, fine, I'll do it. I got to do
Yeah, I think I
something.
was very when I was probably 16 or 17, I was very focused on winning and losing, and not so much just getting better day by day. I was more concerned about the ranking and the tennis recruiting and making sure I was getting noticed by colleges, which just wasn't the case.
It
And
actually completely backfired, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that also played a big factor into why when I would travel to these tournaments, I would play so bad, because I was so worried about, who's watching, who's looking at the results, blah blah blah. And it definitely completely backfired. Yeah.
Any external pressures for that to come in on the results, or did that just come from yourself?
No, my parents were always very supportive. They like I owe everything to my dad. My dad, huge work ethic guy, just always in the gym, always he was very tough on me because he was an athlete and everything, and but he installed this like, work ethic in me, that when I was probably 13, 14, 15, I was like, dude, like leave me alone. Let me just go play my Call of Duty video games. And I remember him always trying to get me to go for runs, and I'm like pushing back, pushing back. But then 18, 19 years old, I'm like doing everything on my own, and he's like, "You're gonna thank me one day." And here I am, like, yeah,
It, it's tough because you look back and obviously that work ethic that your dad was trying to instill when you were young. My dad was very similar. My whole family, everybody, right? I mean, we're just not the same thing. Nonstop gym rats, always working. My parents are in better shape now than I am in their 70s.
yeah,
So but yeah, it can get tiring when you're young and they're just constantly trying to instill that. And there is always that fine line of like risking the burnout, like maybe just exhaust the kid. But then it's like your dad said, like later on, you look back and you're actually like, thank you, right? Because now you understand why you needed it so much, and maybe why playing video games wasn't that really important, even though in that moment when we're kids, to us it does. I mean, would you have preferred? And this isn't anything to put on your dad, but I've always wondered this too, like because I started homeschooling when I was 15, or right into high school. Is like, would it have been better for me to take it easier when I was younger? But then would I still have gotten to the same place where I have the work ethic if I do now, if I was allowed to be just like, all right, fine, you don't want to play a tournament, don't play. All right, you don't want to train today, all right, fine, go play your video games. I struggle with that. I mean, do you ever reflect on that and wonder what would have happened if they would have cut you that slack?
No, no, because I I'm very happy that I wouldn't trade anything for, the way it played out. That was how it was supposed to play out. I'm very grateful. I because my mom was always the one that was like, more lenient. She was like, Chad, let him do this, let him do that. My dad's like, pushing back a little bit. But no, I don't think so, because I think it goes hand in hand, because I played 5 years in college. I took the COVID year. In my fifth year, I was just as fired up, if not the most fired up I ever was throughout college. And you see a lot of people go into college like ready to play, and then towards their fourth or fifth year, they kind of burn out. They get lazy. They s- they start looking at what jobs they're gonna have, or internships they might start doing, and there becomes more responsibilities at kind of an older age, that they kind of, I don't know, I saw it a lot on my team, especially, and even it's everywhere in the country. And I think that because I burnt out early, as bad as that is, it honestly helped me later on because I was fresh.
But when did baseball come in the mix?
Just like that, every normal kid, I probably started playing when I was a little kid. My dad had me in baseball, soccer, tennis, football. Like, I played everything. Uh, and then probably stopped playing soccer when I was 12, 11. And then baseball, I played a little bit longer, probably until I was like maybe eighth grade, middle school, going into like I was still pretty old.
So, I mean, it sounds like pretty busy. I mean, playing soccer up until 12, also
Yeah.
playing baseball as well. I mean, were you playing in leagues, on weekends when you weren't? I mean, so when you're not playing tennis, you're playing baseball or soccer, and if you're not playing tennis tournament, you're playing in the soccer league or baseball league. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, because soccer and baseball were opposite, spring and fall, and then obviously tennis doesn't end. But I remember multiple times going from a tennis tournament to a baseball game, or playing a soccer game at 9 a.m. and then having a match at 11:30. Then just my dad would just sacrifice the whole day and just, take me to all these things, and he loved it. He
Did
did
you
not
love
mind.
it?
I absolutely loved it. I got to play with all my friends. I was playing sports. I was having the time of my life. You
Yeah.
finish the game, you have your Cheetos and your Gatorade, and all's good.
And so then, what got you to stop playing baseball?
Uh, my parents kind of like sat me down, and they're like, "All right, this is kind of becoming a little expensive now that everything's like picking up. We're traveling, and time commitments too. I mean, they both worked, going to practices. Like, it was starting to get tough because both sports started asking for more practice, and I needed to dive into one. And I honestly probably should have chosen baseball. At that age, I was probably better at baseball, honestly. But I think because my dad played in college, my dad loves tennis, my whole family is tennis. I think just at that young age, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with what he did and kind of follow in his footsteps, because I always looked up to him.
And how do you feel about that decision now? I mean, is it? And the reason I ask is not so much on, obviously, okay, you were better in baseball. It's more of, are you happy with the route that you took now, looking at it and be like, I actually love tennis more than baseball? Or it's like, no, I mean, I made my work ethic. I love tennis. I've learned to be disciplined and make hard work, but still sometimes think back at baseball and wonder.
Yeah, I still have that feeling like what could have happened if I stuck with baseball, but no, I don't regret it. I'm very happy with how everything turned out. I think I had a very good college experience. I could never trade in these lessons that I've gotten and who I've met along the way and kind of some of the things I'm doing after without without tennis and going to FAU and none of this would have happened. So I'm very happy with how it all played out.
So you're getting to your sophomore, junior year. I mean, not you've put baseball behind, but
Yeah.
in reality, I mean, you said it yourself. You were even lower on the recruiting list. I
hmm
mean, in the 500s, who knows what what was your UTR then?
I couldn't tell you. I don't think I started looking at UTR probably until I was in college.
So in college, interesting.
Yeah, I don't even think UTR was it really wasn't big yet.
Okay,
They they didn't have the UTR prize money tournaments. It was all like the men's open still in the USTA.
okay,
Uh yeah, I don't UTR wasn't at least like that I don't remember.
yeah.
It was just tennis recruiting and then the USTA, the tentative state rankings and the national.
So so then here you are, sophomore, junior year. I mean, you've made the decision to now focus on tennis,
Mhm.
but in reality, let's face it. I mean, you're not as good ranking wise as you were when you were in 12s.
Yeah.
So how in the world do you turn it around? You got a bigger body, you're growing, you've been injured.
Yeah, it
What
was
turned it around?
it's just gotta be work ethic. I was a good student in school, so that helped me getting onto the team at FAU. But just it was honestly all work ethic in the gym. Like even when I was a senior in high school, I didn't have like the results. Like sure I did good in high school tennis. Like I won a couple state championships but it's high school tennis. Like it's take it with a grain of salt. It's not like that,
When no
tough.
one's recruiting off high school tennis results. Sorry,
Yeah,
people, but
it's not like football where you're winning a state championship, you're the quarterback, you're going to Auburn, Alabama, LSU, doesn't, yeah, it didn't click for me until I got into school. And even it didn't even click in then until my probably junior year of college.
so I mean, you obviously moved up a little bit on the list, but 287 senior year on the recruiting list.
Yeah.
You obviously end up at FAU, where they're one of the better teams in Division One. They're not 287; they're significantly higher.
Mhm.
How in the world did you convince Ricardo to get on that team?
I owe Ricardo and Matt a lot. They have become family to myself, to my parents, my whole family because we're all here. And coaching with them and playing with them for 5 years is the best experience I could ever ask for. I actually I stopped playing tennis probably I wanna say, like, May of 2018 because I was like, "Okay, you know what? It's not looking good. I'm not gonna" I had I had an offer from East Carolina. It was probably, like, 30% scholarship, very low, but out of state, it was, like, 30, 40 grand, and I'm like, "Screw that. I can go to school for free in Florida with my academics." And I had the same thing with, Boston University, very minimal, and it was like 50 grand. I'm like, no. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to FAU and just be a student and figure it out.
So you're ready to leave tennis behind.
Oh, I left tennis behind. Like I didn't play all summer before my freshman year of college. I'll tell you, this is the story I tell people. So it's the first week of school. I'm like, I'm strictly just not having touched a tennis racket in probably 3 months. First week of school, meeting friends. I get a call from one of my buddies, and I had dated this girl in high school for a little bit. And he's like, "Oh, like so and so is going out to like this like club, like we're gonna, it's like a local college thing, and we're gonna go." And I was like, "Oh, like, I have to go, like, I wanna see her." So I wind up going to this place, and turns out I just, like, meet up with a bunch of my classmates, like, the girl's irrelevant now, and, I'm talking to this girl, and she's like, "Oh, like, what do you do?" And she's very intoxicated. And she's asking me like, "Oh, like, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a tennis player." And she goes, "Oh, like, so you play at FAU?" And she doesn't understand what's going in and out of her ears. So next thing you know, she's like, "Oh, like, your teammates are here." I'm like, "My teammates?" And in that moment, it just, like, clicked for me. I'm like, "You know what? Imma try and walk on to the team at FAU." I meet 2 of my p now, like, teammates at this place. They speak 0 English. We, like, start becoming, like, friends and friendly and whatever, and they're from Spain, and yeah, so I meet them, whatever, the night ends, I go home, and the next morning I wake up, and I'm like, "Alright, how can I get in touch with Ricardo?" He's impossible to get in touch with. I've tried emailing him, calling him, texting him, nothing. I call Fernando, my old coach who played at USC, very well connected down here. He knows a lot of people. So he called him, and he's like talking to him, blah blah. I'm like, all right, there's no chance this is gonna work. Like, I'm sure every kid tries to do this. One of the guys on FAU quit the team the same day that he called Ricardo, and he's like, yeah, sure, like, we're not really looking at anything, but you can bring him out. Maybe we'll like him if he's like, a good motivator, good in school, like, not really gonna be an issue, blah blah blah. And then probably for 2 months, I showed up to practice after class, just stayed around the team, kind of kept introducing myself, being like a pain in the ass.
but
So
not on
that
the team.
I wasn't on the team. I wasn't playing, just showing up, watching, talking to the coaches, talking to the guys. And then he gave me like a not like a tryout, but like I played on like one of the farther down courts, and like he watched me play from afar, and I guess he definitely didn't like what saw because I wasn't that good back then. But I don't know. He just gave me a shot just to be just a good teammate, I guess. And yeah, the rest was history after that. I started we would practice from 9 to 12, like 3 hours, go to the gym, and then I would come home and work out again or go for a run, or I was that's all I did. All I did was work out, play tennis. I wasn't a partier at all.
But so you went 3 months without playing tennis.
Yeah.
You have a conversation with an intoxicated girl at the bar. Something triggered, like, yeah, I kind of want to play tennis. I want to be on the team.
Yeah.
And but then you still have to wait 2 more months, right?
So by then, I started playing again probably 2 to 3 times a week
That's what I was going to get at.
with the
Who'd you start
intention
playing with?
Fernando. I started
Okay,
playing Fernando again.
just on the hopes that maybe you get a shot, because you don't know you're going to get a shot.
Yeah, 2 to 3 times a week, and I remember it was, like, September, October, and I was like, "Wow, I don't remember it being this hot." And I was always in great shape, but, tennis shape and being in shape are 2 different things. But yeah, 2, 3 times a week playing after not
But
playing
that's still not a lot. I mean, it's not like you're like, oh, I'm going to go 6 days a week, which is what these guys are doing.
Yeah, no,
So
and going back to kinda what you were talking about earlier, I think another thing that helped me grow was I was only playing 2 to 3 hours a day, maybe 4 days a week when I was a junior, and then once I started playing in college, I was playing against people that were way better than me. I was playing 3 to 4 hours a day, and I was playing 6 days a week. So I just got more reps, and I was getting bigger, stronger, more confident. Playing against people that are better than me, it forced me to get better.
so it seems so you had the work ethic, but then when you finally got the right amount of training
Yeah.
in the right structure with better players, which is not always easy to find. It's hard to even find players your own level that are willing to push you the same work ethic, train the same amount. Then you finally hit the gym as well, the way you needed to actually hit the gym for tennis,
Mhm.
and then things started to grow, right? Where
Yeah.
you could finally then improve. But all right, so Ricardo lets you on the team. All right, we got a good walk on. We'll put you on the team. Be a great teammate. Be a good work ethic. Fine, but you barely play. your
Mhm.
first 2 years there. I mean, obviously we had the fall tournaments, but in regular season, I mean, you barely played. I mean, how did that feel, barely playing? I mean, here you are. Was there a party that's like, look, I mean, I'm training hard, I'm getting better, I'm playing better. Why don't I just go to another school where I can play right away and maybe just at least actually play, or
Yeah.
instead of just waiting for your turn, hoping. A lot of people, especially with the transfer portal now, people are like, well, if I don't play, I'm out. Everybody wants to play high in the lineup, so they transfer just because they want to go from 4 to 2, even though they were still playing. So, I mean, what was that like? And did you feel any pressure that you're not playing, but you're brought on the team? And what was that like?
My freshman year, I didn't play the fall because I wasn't eligible until the spring, so I didn't play any fall tournaments. I think I played 3 doubles matches my freshman year. I think I won all of them, but, they're against, like, low-end D1 schools that you kinda can put some bench players in and see how they do, and this one, the first match I ever played, it's match point, and everyone's watching my court, whatever. I've got an overhead on top of the net, and I'm supposed to, just bounce it over the fence, no look, whatever, like, easy. I think I hit the overhead. It goes 50 feet up in the air, straight up and straight down, and everyone's watching the ball, and it felt like time stopped and it was in slow motion. I'm like, "I'm never seeing the court again after this." And the guy, I think, was so shocked that it was such a bad overhead that he missed it. And that's how I won my first, match in doubles, but yeah, no, I my freshman year, I kind of accepted that I was a walk-on. I didn't really have any pushback. I didn't really care. I was just happy to be competing back on the team again, you know, all that. Sophomore year, we had a tough schedule. I think we played 9 top 25 schools before, COVID shut it down. I mean, we played TCU, Florida, Florida State, Columbia, Miami, like, all these schools that were top 25. Sophomore year, I think that was when I was like, "Okay, I think I can play some doubles." But still, it's a trust thing, and I just didn't have that trust yet with the coaches. And I don't even know if Ricardo knows this, so he might, if he sees this, he's gonna be hearing this for the first time. After sophomore year, so it's summer going into my junior year, I was training with this, kid down here that played at Charleston Southern, or not Charleston Southern, College of Charleston, lower level D1 school, very great location. And he's like, "What number do you play on the team?" Like, "I don't play." And he's like, "You would play like 2 at our school, 1 or 2 at our school." And that always piqued an interest in me and all that. And I was thinking about going in the portal, and I'm driving with my family to Pennsylvania on this summer trip we always take to this lake. And I call Ricardo just to check in, to literally tell him, like, "Hey, I'm thinking about transferring, going in the portal." And he answers the phone. He's like, "Hey, buddy, like, how's your summer doing? Like, how is everything?" And just in that, like, split second, I was like, "Everything's great, like, I'm so excited to come back next year," and I just took that idea and left it out the window and didn't wind up, doing it, and just decided to stay put at school.
But just, afraid to have that confrontation, and so then you just have to run with the decision you made, or I mean,
A little bit of both. I think I was afraid to have that conversation with him because he, not even because he took a chance on me, just I don't, yeah, that, and something about Ricardo was very personable. He wasn't the type of coach that you were afraid of. He was very much cared about your life outside of tennis and what you do with it once you're off the team. He he had like a personal relationship with just about everyone on the team. And ultimately I think that is what caused me to stay. And I also bet on myself. I've been betting on myself my whole life with, being a walk on and staying local and going through all these things. I knew that if I kept working at it, that the success was eventually going to come.
well, the bet clearly paid off because the last 2 years of your career there were by far the best. I mean, you end up finishing with a 21-9 singles record, so you thought you were going to be a good doubles player. You also got into some singles matches,
Yeah.
but then you also do crush it in doubles. You finish with a 45-16 record in doubles. So that bet paid off. I mean, did anything change, or the hard work just finally settled in?
The hard work finally just started settling in, and I definitely got way more confident. But even like in college, I hated singles. Like my senior year, I was like in the fall, Ricardo was always getting mad at me. He was always fighting with me, like, why don't you take singles as seriously as you do doubles? Like, I'm like, personally, I think singles is boring. I don't like it. I love playing doubles. It's fun. It's whatever. And I'm sitting there my senior year conference tournament, and we're losing like the semifinal match. I think we're playing. I don't remember who we were playing. And I'm just watching our number 6 guy, and I'm like, and he's one of my best friends to this day, and he will kill me when he sees this. And I'm just watching it. I'm just like, I just think I can help the team do better. Like I feel like my work like I wanted it to be my fault. Like I'm just that type of person. Like if we lost a match, like I want it to be in like my hands, like my fault. I didn't want to be there watching somebody else being like, okay, we lost because this person lost. Like if we were gonna lose, like I wanted all the blame to be on myself. That's just the type of, competitor I was. I played tennis like I was playing football or baseball or hockey. Like I was completely different than any of these German tennis players that are very focused and quiet. I was very, very Americanized in sports. So then after that tournament, the conference tournament, I said to myself, and I texted one of my best friend, and I'm like, I'm gonna play number 6 for us next year, and everyone thought I was crazy, and just worked my ass off all summer and had a, had a pretty good fall, and then came into the spring season. Like there's like a week or two where like if you're like on the bubble, you play a lot of challenge matches and stuff to see who's in the best form to start the season. Played lights out, got my shot opening weekend, my 5th year. I go 2-0 in doubles at number 1 and 2, I think. And then I won all 3 conference matches that first weekend, got conference player of the week, and then the rest of the season I was just kind of locked in there.
So, what would you say now? Obviously, people have situations that are like, look, they are in a bad team environment that's not a good fit. So
Uh,
we understand it, but more so to those people that are thinking about transferring, or even especially like I get this a lot from juniors that are looking to colleges. They get the big question of, well, should I search for a team where I can play high in the lineup, or should I go search for a better team where there's good players? I might not even start my first semester. What should I do? What would you say to that? Considering the
so
bet you put on yourself, you had the opportunity to go play at a pretty good school in a pretty good location, Charleston. If you want to take that
yeah,
place to be,
I think what I learned from going, I'll do 2 things. What I wanted in a college when I was in high school, and then what I learned once I was in school. I think they're 2 different things. I it was a pretty much I had to go to a school that either had a great like a good football program because I wanted to go to football games, or they had to have a great, hockey program. Like they had to have one of the 2 because I wanted that life. And then I think for people that are either transferring or looking at schools, you got to know who you are. Like if you're okay being in the middle of nowhere where tennis is the only thing you can think about and talk about, then maybe you go to a school like that. For me, I needed things outside of tennis to kind of decompress. Like if I did tennis 24/7, I my head would have exploded. As soon as we got back from a road trip or long practice, like I wouldn't check tennis. I would hang out with my school friends, or I would separate the 2. That's something I learned about myself. So I think for kids that are either transferring or going to different schools or whatnot, I think the most important thing for them is to figure out who they are and what are their biggest, like what makes them happy. What do they like to do outside of tennis? Is it location? Is it weather? Is it football games? Is it friends? Is it nightlife? Whatever, is it going pro? Like whatever honestly makes them happy. That's the biggest thing I would say.
Well, that's perfect, man. I mean, I think it's pretty impressive the jump that you made senior year of high school, but really even after essentially quitting tennis, we don't have to call it quitting. You just say stop.
Yeah.
Take that much time off. At that late time in your career, there's so many kids that are afraid. There are so many parents that are afraid when I tell them, "Hey, I think your child should just take a week off of tennis. If they want to go do fitness, that's fine, but give them a break. Let's just let them go run. If they don't want to do fitness, it's not that big a deal." They're like, a week? No, 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 no. They can't go a week without playing tennis. You took 3 months off while starting college, and then only played 2 to 3 times a week for 2 months. And obviously, you ended up working your way back into the place that you needed to be. You can make an argument that, well, if he would have been playing the whole time, then he would have gotten there faster. I always make the argument, or he would have burnt out right away and never even wanted to continue playing if he kept training those 3 months, right?
Yeah.
But that's a really impressive jump to get back in there, and then for Ricardo to give you that chance. There are a lot of schools, a lot of coaches that they don't want to take that chance. It's just not worth their effort. Like, the guy's probably not going to win enough matches where it's going to make a difference. He might not even play. And they don't see the bigger picture as to who they can develop into and what role they can play on their team. Like you were saying, to be a good teammate. And that was enough to keep you on the team until you got your shot. So many coaches that they just don't want to even give kids chances. Because then what they're afraid of is that, well, if anybody finds out that you got a chance, well, then I have a right to ask for a chance because I'm
Yep.
better than Hunter. And now 25,000 other kids know that, hey, FAU gives chances.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you earned your way. You showed up to practice, just sitting there watching practice. You're in college. No one's telling you to go there. And you just sat there and watched practice and kept putting yourself out there, and just basically were a pain in the ass until it's like, all right, fine, come out, go play. Let's get this over with.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I don't know many kids that when they get that first or second no, that's it, done. And they just move on and do other stuff. And for you, that was not enough.
Yeah.
So look, that's really cool, man. Thanks for sharing your journey.
Of course.
Really interesting, and definitely wish you all the best, and wish FAU and Ricardo all the best. And even though I did see that you did beat Florida State in doubles, I'm a Florida State alum, so I was a little bit. I'm like, I got us there.
I grew up a huge Gators fan.
No.
So there was a little bit of some extra fuel to whenever I played them. And we had their number every single year in doubles. Every single year.
Funny how that works, yeah.
I don't think I lost a doubles match to them.
Well, I'm sure you were also very happy after Saturday's win. So
yes. Yeah. My brother goes to Florida State, and he was at the game, and he was not happy.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. You have to go to the game even if you know what the result's going to be.
Yeah,
and you got to support the team.
That's one of the best rivalries in all sports. So yeah, you got it. You got to appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, Hunter, thanks for your time, man. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
See ya.